All right, guys. This is the UFC 296 live recap show, the last one of the year on sherdogdotcom. We got the varsity team here, the Shillan and Duffy recap show. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of sherdog.com. I was going to think of something funny to say, but Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Nice and relaxed. I thought I'd have to go take some blood pressure medication or some beta blockers or something, but turns out I'm nice and relaxed. Had a real exciting prelims and just kind of coasted into the end of my evening. I figure I'll do this show, have a nightcap, and go to bed.
Yeah, before we get into the action, we'll be recapping all 12, maybe 13 fights, actually, on the night, as we had one in the crowd. Yep. Shout out to all the guys in the chat. Thank you guys, guys and gals, for chatting it up. We try to get to as many comments and questions and predictions and everything we can. Let's get right into it. UFC 296, one of the most stacked cards of the year. Finished up really strong. The big argument heading in before fight week by the hardcores, not by the casuals, was that Colby Covington did not deserve a title shot against Leon Edwards, being that he was coming off one win over Jorge Masvidal, hasn't fought in 2 years. You had contenders like Shavkat, Rakhmonov, and obviously Belal Muhammad, kind of guys who, has been more consistent, obviously winning. Those guys kind of deserved it. Obviously, the way you sell a fight sometimes matters more. And at this point of his career, that seems like that's the only thing Colby can do is talk. As he lost a unanimous decision, I think was it all the judges had a 49-46?
Yeah, I believe it was 49-46 all
across
around.
the board. Yeah. Leon Edwards just picked him up for the first 4 rounds. Probably lost the 5th round. He got taken down. Spent the majority of the round on bottom. But at that point, it was pretty much over. Yeah. Kind of, the pulling the starters, playing all the freshmen kind of thing. Is he won a lopsided, not the most action fight. I'm assuming you had it scored the same way.
Yeah, 49-46. Edwards seemed pretty straightforward to me. Covington spent significant time on top in the 5th round and actually did some damage. He was punching Edwards pretty consistently the whole round. He won the round. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought maybe somebody might give the 4th round. There wasn't too much action. He did get 2 takedowns to 1. I thought maybe he could have won that round, but best case scenario was to be 3 rounds to 2. I'm watching this fight and I'm thinking if I'm Leon Edwards' corner, I couldn't have dreamed of a better scenario than the way the fight was going. A distance kickboxing fight where Colby Covington is fighting on the back of his heels with his back towards, in that warning track area, not moving forward, occasionally throwing like a high kick or like a jumping front kick and biting on every single feint that Leon's throwing. I don't know if Colby was hurt or maybe it was just the leg damage that he took early on because he wasn't moving well. Even some of the scrambles, there was one point he was on top. Edwards created scramble and he didn't even hold, didn't look for arm, anything, just kind of let him up. This is a dream scenario. You defend your belt against Colby Covington and you take no damage. Now, did Colby land one really good shot the entire fight?
No, the biggest damage Edwards took was that nasty cut on his knee, but I don't think Colby did that. I mean, Edwards might have done it kneeing him in the mouth or something. Might have gotten bit or something with a bottom tooth. But yeah, I mean, you and I both picked Edwards to win this one. He was the slight to moderate favorite going in, but even so, the way this fight played out was strange because at no point during the fight did I feel that Covington was was any threat to win it. Even when he was winning the 5th round, I was like, okay, it looks like he's probably going to win this round, but there was no indication that he was going to finish the fight or even put down the kind of damage that would lead to a 10-8 round and maybe some interesting scorecards where we're stuck with like a majority decision because one weird judge also gave him the 4th round or something. No, Covington had next to nothing to offer Edwards here. I mean, if you told me that Covington would have 0 earnest takedown attempts through the first 2 rounds of the fight, I would have said, okay, Edwards wins this and it's going to be boring as shit. And well, I would have been right on both counts.
Yeah, if you told me that Colby didn't go for a takedown attempt, I would have thought it would look like maybe like the Kamaru Usman fight where it's a lot of pocket boxing and maybe he's holding his own, something like that. And he's saving the takedown attempts later, but he's doing enough to maybe win rounds. But I don't know how you really grade. I feel like I grade Leon's Edwards performance as like an incomplete. If I was a teacher, I'd give him an incomplete. What I mean by that is, like, he cruised to this decision victory, and he didn't win himself too many fans tonight. He probably lost himself some fans. Probably going against Bilal Muhammad next. And that could be the most he talked about fight, but why would he take a chance in this fight? Like he didn't have to. It's like so much like, yeah, maybe you have, I don't know, who's the best duo in the NFL right now? Quarterback, wide receiver. I don't know, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs or we'll say for the Europeans won't know who we're talking about. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Yeah, it's really easy for Patrick Mahomes to throw passes at Travis Kelce that goes for 30, 35 yards, but when you hand the ball off and it keeps going for 8 yards every time, sometimes you just got to hand the ball off,
and,
And
it's easy to forget because of the epic nature of the 2 Usman fights. This is what every Leon Edwards fight looks like if he's fighting someone who can't threaten him. This is what all of his fights in that win streak basically looked like until he got to the title shot. Like, if you let Leon Edwards box you up and throw kicks at you from his preferred range, he's going to do it all night. And if you don't stop him, he's going to beat you 30-27 or 50-45. And everybody is going to want to kill themselves afterwards.
I was watching this fight and I was thinking about the fight right before it, the way Pantoja fought Brandon Royval, and I'm like, how did Colby not like glance up at the screen while he's warming up and go, that's exactly how I have to fight. I don't have to win a kickboxing match, but I have to do enough on the feet to set up my takedowns and wrestle heavy. I'm watching the first round and there was no action going on. Like Leon might have had a couple more strikes and I'm giving him the round, but it's like nothing's happening. The first round was terrible. And I'm sitting there and I go, maybe Colby is trying to get him to not think about the takedown and he's going to like blast double him right at the end of the round and try to hold him down for 30 seconds and win a really cheap round.
Which, if that, it would have been more interesting to watch than this, but if that was your route to victory, that ain't great either because Covington's top control has never been as good as his takedown game, partly because of the size thing. He's just not that big, and partly because of his priorities. And then on top of that, Leon Edwards is a tough guy to hold down. I mean, Kamaru Usman had a tough time holding him down. I can see where, I would have hoped for something like that as well, but that wasn't going to do it either. Covington is at his best, at his most elite, when he's putting his opponent on the back foot and when the threat of the takedown is opening up his striking for him. That's when he really overwhelms people. And just none of the above happens tonight.
Yeah, but when you really dig in, and I feel like we kind of did this on the previous show, when you really dig in on his performances and who he's beaten recently and who he was able to fight that way and who he was able to press, I mean, like when he was getting takedowns and using this insane pace, we're talking about RDA, a guy that was undersized for the division, kind of, I know he's fought much, a couple of years since, but still like different at that point of his career, different than where Leon Edwards was. I don't think he can do that, being that he's 35, as a lot of people mentioned in the chat, that he hasn't fought in 2 years. But also, and we mentioned this on the previous show, to this extent, it's new. seeing gun shy Colby sitting back on his back foot to this extent, to this extreme, I should say. But rewatch the first 2 rounds of the Usman fight, the second Usman fight. It was very similar. I mean, a lot of people talked about like, what is Colby doing? He comes on strong and then remembers the late finish where I think he wins the last 2 rounds. So it looks like a pretty close fight, but 2 or 3 rounds of that fight, and he's just giving the fight away. This one was even worse. And the sad thing is, when he actually moved forward, I don't think he was going to win no matter what. I really don't. I don't think if he pushed forward, I think he might have got knocked out if he pushed forward, if he, tried getting takedowns. I don't think he was going to win. I think he was overmatched. I think at this point in their career, Leon was a much better fighter. Obviously, we saw the results. But that was his only avenue of victory. Going out in a shield, doing a Korean zombie to Max Holloway, like, yeah, I'm going to lose, but fuck it. I'm going to give him my all and give it a shot. And I wonder if he's accepted at this point of his career of being that character. I'm going to get big fights. I'm going to get paychecks. I'll say outlandish things. I'll always take this kind of like this Chael Sonnen and I never lost gimmick kind of thing. A little more of an asshole than Chael Sonnen. When Chael Sonnen does it more like lovable,
Chael always gave you the impression he was in on the joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the case with him.
It might be. He's probably entering that range where he might end up headlining a few more UFCs before it's all said and done. Maybe not pay-per-views, but at least fight nights, because he's entered that realm of kind of stardom / heat where it's going to last and be it's going to last despite the wins and losses for the next little while. Like if he wants to keep fighting for another year or two, take 3 or 4 more fights, they'll be high profile fights.
Yeah, and one thing I want to talk about, because I don't want it to, sometimes we do this, we'll focus on one fighter and not focus on both guys' performances. Leon pressed the pace early. Well, I don't want to say pressed the pace because it wasn't pace, but he pressed where the fight was going to be. Like he was stepping forward. He was the one. He wanted, Colby with his back on against the cage. He wanted him with his on his back heels, and he was taking the ground. All the ground Colby was giving, he was taking. Like, okay, you're gonna give it to me. I'm gonna get in that area. So Edwards did a lot of good things. I think he was freezing them with the feints, obviously kicking the legs. Whether you're going to get a striker, just take away their power, or the wrestler taking their, the power to spring into your entries. I think Edwards is a very intelligent fighter, and that's something that he needs to get a lot of credit for, because, yeah, Colby was getting in his head, and I know I can speak for it. I am not a snowflake. Like I love the trash talk. I enjoy it. I really like the genuine, real, this real trash talk, but even like gimmicky WF stuff, I like. Colby went too far. The line with his dad, like that's too far. Like you don't talk about someone's relative who, when he was 13 years old, got murdered, and I know there's some allegations about his dad being like gang members and all. Doesn't matter. There's somebody that Leon always loved. Like, yeah, that was terrible. And honestly, if you go to the, did you see the seasonal press conference where they do the upcoming fights?
No, what happened?
Oh, I think Sean O'Malley and Dricus du Plessis went even worse than Colby, or maybe, I don't want to say worse, but at least to the same level. You can debate what was worse. But when you start making jokes about Sean Strickland being abused by his dad and possibly sexually assaulted by his dad, like that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I love the trash talk. I do. I love trash talk. I like I always think about like the old Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock when we first saw trash talk.
Yeah.
And when they were going at it, we're like, oh my God, did you see Tito and Ken Shamrock pointing at Tito and yelling at him? Like, I love that. And I would say, I know that was really over the top WWD, but guys, this is what we've gotten this weekend. We've gotten Colby making comments about Leon's murdered dad, Sean O'Malley and Dricus du Plessis talking about someone being child molested, Sean Strickland calling somebody profanity of I don't know how to say this, of gay origins. And we had Colby like accusing Stephen Thompson, like even like I know he was like tongue in cheek, but like making comments about child molestation. Like, oh, and then on top of that, we start off a press conference with, "Hey, who fucked Ian Gary's wife?" Like, come on, guys. Like, let's be a little bit of a sport too.
A little bit of one, obviously these are in a lot of cases damaged people, extreme people, people who've come up without some of the accustomed social graces. But I mean, and the UFC only takes it as seriously to the point that it affects their relationship with their sponsors. Now that ESPN and Disney are in the same bucket, word leaks down, and that's when punishments are handed out. I try to let it all wash over me. If either of us is a snowflake, it's me. And yeah, I pretty much tuned out a lot of it this week and sort of focused on what was coming up in the cage.
It's gotten to the point where everything is allowed except, and even I shouldn't even say except, because there has been moments where some people would argue racism, but blatant racism where you can't argue when someone drops the N-word or something like that. Like that's the only line that has been crossed. And I feel like that's coming.
Oh, and
like someone's gonna go, I'll go even more extreme.
And Covington walked right up to that line against Kamaru Usman. Like talking about smoke signals from the village and shit. Yeah.
So, but I want to be clear, like the Trump thing and the MAGA and you guys are a bunch of virgins and my bedroom card, like that's fun. Like that's all fun but I don't know where we're going with this, but what I wanted to say was Colby trying to get into Leon's head. Well, you did all this work to get into his head, get him pissed off. Well, then use that in the cage. Go fight him, get him to really overswing to try to knock, and that opens up your takedown attempts. Or maybe he overswings and you actually land on some good shots yourself. Like, and to credit to Leon, he looked like there was nobody. It looked like a sparring session, and you're the pro fighter going against the amateur.
Oh, I was going to say, some of Colby's best moments of success during the fight were the moments where Edwards did things that were not strategically expedient because he was trying to get one back against Covington. Like the first time Covington really went for a takedown, Edwards, instead of he had the wizard just kind of shuck him off and go back to kickboxing, tried to take his back, and then the second time he was taken down, he immediately tried to take Colby down, right afterwards, just to kind of prove he could. Those were actually some of the moments before the fifth round where Colby had his best success, is where Edwards, he was clearly in Edwards' head a little bit, because Edwards was doing things for effect rather than to win the fight.
Well, I think that was more of the competitive style of it, because he tried taking Usman down, and he did take Usman down early in their fight. So I think that's that like when George St. Pierre would come out wrestling guys, John Jones does it even when it's not a beef. I think it's that more competitive side, not necessarily the like I'm going to make him pay for what he said. I'm so pissed off. Anthem Tardif mentions that he mentioned about Usman's coach. Yeah, I know he made the dead jokes. It's a little, I mean, that was terrible too, but it's a little different. It's like your dad, and your dad was murdered. But I'm not making an excuse. That was Colby's crossing lines a couple of times. To me, when I watched Edwards put on the performance he did, it was good, but he still makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, he tried jumping over a wizard. That's some like low level wrestling shit. Now listen, he's a great athlete that's made himself like he knows the certain points of wrestling. He understands entry, he understands locking hands, he understands turning corners, he understands the basic underhooks. But there's still areas that he didn't grow up wrestling that he doesn't understand.
And I think he may have underestimated Colby there, because that's the kind of thing that's a terrible idea in real wrestling, but works in the gym if you're going against somebody that you just badly overmatch on a physical level. No, I agree. And this is a guy in Edwards that I think it's pretty much beyond argument now that he's the greatest MMA wrestler ever from the UK.
Oh
I
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
like
That's
there's not
not
even a
really,
close second.
yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
not really not a lot to compare to, but
no, like no fundamental mistakes though, definitely still happening. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Back to Covington. Like I said, it felt a lot like the Adesanya Strickland fight where y- you're like, what is he doing? Like, why is he fighting this way? Like, what's going on? And even the fifth round, he goes for takedowns, and I'm like, normally that's your best avenue of victory, and maybe, I mean, maybe you pull off a Hail Mary submission, but you're not Charles Oliveira. You've never been, you're not Damian Maya, or one of these jujitsu threats where that was your avenue of victory. Like he's never that guy. Like you needed a stoppage, and you're wasting time wrestling. And his corner, I thought his corner was. Listen, Kobe needs to make changes. The first thing he needs to do is leave MMA
MMA
Masters.
Masters.
Like the corner work was fucking terrible. Like,
Yeah.
like you might not win because you're the challenger. You might not win because the guy's tripling you in the strike total.
Yeah.
You're not win because you haven't got a single takedown. You're not going to win because you're missing you're not fighting the to your chance of victory. You're standing on the outside getting your legs kicked off and jabbed. Like, what is he talking about? Like that you might not win when it's close is when we have really, it's two really close rounds that we might have won, but hey, we're fighting in your opponent's hometown, so we still want to get the stoppage here. That's you might not get this. Not like he was acting like it was close rounds.
Yeah, and I've generally been one who sticks up for MMA Masters. I think they've been kind of an underrated gym, but this was a bad night for them in terms of cornering Covington, and apparently in terms of preparing him for the fight. And part of that might be, well, who's the best guy they have anyone near his weight range? Probably Miguel Baeza for him to work with. But yeah, he came in mystifying game plan, no real adjustments between rounds, bad advice, unrealistic takes on how the fight was going. It was, yeah, I completely agree. Bad all around.
And then going into the fifth round, all they were saying was, "Oh, he's tired. Look at him, he's tired." And then the camera shows Leon Edwards like having a conversation with his coaches, like not breathing hard at all. Like, what the hell? He better off working with what was that freaking nut job that Diego Sanchez was working with?
I can't remember his name because I was talking about all the other freaks, like the guy that the guy that Tony Ferguson's been working with, Ido Portal, that was thank Goggins, Ido Portal, that was Connor's movement coach, and what's his name, Dale Brown, that Joaquin Buckley briefly worked with as a joke, the urban survival training guy. I cannot remember the
Fabio.
Josh Fabia. Thank you.
Fabia,
Thank you.
Nice show.
J-Sex. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did Kobe look shot?
He looked at least compromised. If there's some sort of nagging injury, and I don't know why I'm the guy that's going to go down the path of making possible excuses for Colby fucking Covington. But
there's no excuses anymore. No. Even if you're injured, everyone's always injured.
Yeah, everyone's injured.
Find a way to get through it.
I think a more interesting question is, does the layoff that included getting several key teeth knocked out of his head have anything to do with this? Like, did it make him gun shy? Are his teeth Rory McDonald's nose, where he was always shy on the trigger after Robbie Lawler destroyed his nose?
Yeah, I wonder that. I'm more concerned with the second Usman fight because he did the same thing in second. Now, at the end, he was willing to kind of, oh shit, let me step on the gas here and make it a fight. I don't know. I wonder if the cardio isn't what it used to be, and he's trying to slow down the pace, and he's trying to, squeak out. He knows it's someone earlier in the chat kind of said that the Tyron Woodley run where he had to slow down the pace, have everyone fight it that way, and kind of win close rounds or win boring fights. I don't know if that's the case, but I mean, Sean Strickland landed more punches in the stands than Kobe landed in 25 minutes.
Yeah, Chris Wiz has said several variations on this, so I'm going to put it up there. It might just be the age. He pointed out that.
Oh yeah.
champs over the age of 35 are something like 2-20 at welterweight, and the two, were Woodley. Like the 2 wins were Woodley. Like it's there's definitely a drop off. So like that's entirely possible. Colby is a guy that he has had 21 now MMA fights. He had a lengthy wrestling and grappling career before that. I mean, we're talking about a guy that, if he's from Oregon, he was probably wrestling from the time he was 6 years old. He's a, former All-American. He's a guy that went on to, some notoriety in grappling after that. Like, he's had a long career. It's possible that he is on his way to shot.
Yeah.
And Chris, sorry. Yeah. Weight class is 170 and under. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not kind to the elderly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are really good points. Very, very good points. I also wonder if Colby, I think back on his career, when, 10 years after he retired, we mentioned Colby Covington. Like I think the gimmick thing is always good. The first thing we think of,
sure.
The Trump thing, the getting under his skin, trying to be enemy number one. Yeah. But the second one will be that guy who had so many chances at that title and didn't win. And I always wonder, for a guy who had a lot of chances, he also had a lot of time off. And I wonder if he was always, you always hear that right place, right time. He was the wrong place, wrong time. Where, like, remember when he was going to be the guy to face Tyron Woodley and he decides to do his nose instead and Usman goes in? Like, yeah. When those two guys were on the, collision course up the rankings, I always had Usman over Colby. I thought Usman was better. It was like, Colby, you got to get that first. You got to get that title shot first. Keep talking and get the title shot first, because once they said, okay, Colby's not getting it, we're going to Usman, it was like, damn, dude, you missed your chance. And I kind of feel the same way now. Like those 2 years being 35 instead of 33. Yeah. And again, obviously, when Usman 2 years ago, Usman was a champion, and it kind of sucked to be him anyways, but he wasn't going to get that shot after that. But I just think he'd probably be a better fighter. Would have that much more to his legacy. No, like that's a good point. And the thing is, Colby Covington, controversy aside, has been an outstanding fighter, but he's also spent the prime years of his career, one, with some lengthy layoffs, and two, in a division stacked at the top with guys who are also great wrestlers, also have very good cardio, and almost all happen to be bigger than him. Just a tough era to be Colby Covington. So the chat is blowing up. Obviously, the UFC press conference, the going on right now. Make sure you guys all listen to that tomorrow. Don't listen to it now. This is better than that. But they're claiming that Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal got rebooked.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Yes.
A lot of backstory on that one.
But most importantly, UFC assigned Michael Venom Page.
And I was just thinking, could that I mean, did they announce that he's fighting somebody? I know there's Kevin Holland rumors.
Kevin Holland's been angling for it.
How about Colby versus him?
Shit. The talk would be fire.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think style. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about Leon Edwards real quick. I mean, Bilal Muhammad weighed in as the alternate for this fight. Did Shavkat jump Bilal Muhammad if you're the matchmaker, or are you? No, again, if this is the first time listening, way we do our matchmaking, we might do it different than other shows do. Other shows might predict what the UFC is going to do. We don't do that. We do, if we're the supreme emperor, nobody can say no. Ben Duffy's the boss. This is what happens. Would Shavkat jump Bilal Muhammad, or would you go Bilal?
I'd go Bilal. I'm the purist. I mean, neither of us are super purists, but at this point, yeah, he's not the most exciting guy in the cage. He's not the most exciting guy out of the cage. But if competitive legitimacy means anything, he's on a 10-fight unbeaten streak. He has a no contest against Edwards were. Yeah, Edwards was ahead, but they'd fought for like 5 minutes and 17 seconds.
Yeah, it was one round. It wasn't the most competitive. I mean, it wasn't the most action packed. And
No, and Belal Muhammad is, even in a top 10 that's full of guys with great cardio, might be the cardio machine of all of them. And like, you can't cut a Belal Muhammad fight off after 6 minutes and be like, well, it was just going to be another 19 minutes of that.
Didn't Belal Muhammad step up too? Wasn't it like a short notice fight? I feel like he stepped up for an injury.
It was thrown together at short notice. I can't remember which guy stepped up.
I'm almost positive Belal. Someone looked that up for us. I'm almost positive Belal Muhammad stepped up on short notice as somebody else fell out of the fight. Yeah, I feel the same way. Well, Rakhmonov is definitely the sexier matchup in the sense, 18-0, 18 stoppages. I mean, that's as incredible as you want. The problem that you're going to have is he doesn't speak English. But besides he doesn't speak English, and they can get by that. They've been able to get by that before. So I know I say that a lot, but there's still that's a hurdle. But he doesn't say anything at all. And he doesn't have that, scary Russian, Ivan Drago. I don't say much, but when I say something, it's scary. Yeah. No, he says something like, Stephen Thompson's a really good kickboxer, he's really decorated. How are you going to deal with his striking? And he goes, I got good MMA striking. or I want to win for Kazakhstan. Like, oh, cool. Like, and now in the cage, the guy's a killer, and obviously we'll talk about that in a little bit. I just feel like you kind of have to eventually do Belal Muhammad. I mean, it kind of has that John Fitch feel to it, where he's always there and give the guy the shot. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the Leon and Belal Muhammad, that was years ago. Belal's much better now.
He has continued to improve, but as has been pointed out, he's 35. This is like, yeah, I'm a purist, but I'm also strike while the iron is hot. And however hot the iron is going to get for Edwards and Belal to finish their business, it's right now.
Yeah.
Suppose, like, if you make the Rakhmonov fight next, then you've basically relegated Belal Muhammad to a guy that's probably going to wipe out a couple of your other up-and-coming guys. He's going to kill a couple more Sean Brady's and just be a thorn in your side. Just let him fight Edwards, and if he loses a terrible fight to Edwards, you can push him way back down the line and say, okay, you'd have to win 10 more fights to get another title shot. But otherwise, you push Rakhmonov too far. You push Rakhmonov into the title shot, and you end up with a problem 2 years down the line where he's beaten everybody in the top 10 that's not on a 2-fight losing streak. Oh, and Belal's about to turn 38 now, and he's not really in the picture anymore. Like, why burn the goods that you have on your table right now?
Yeah. I would book him against Belal, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, you can't sell pay-per-views with those two guys. When Belal Muhammad has the bigger personality, you're in trouble. But like I've said over the last, couple months, he's grown on me. I'm not a hater. I'm not a hater of any of the fighters. I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy who says, oh, Belal Muhammad sucks. Or I'm like, I don't do that. So but there's certain guys you got more excited to watch. Belal Muhammad was never one of those, but he's grown on me. What I would do with them, I mean, if you're going to load UFC 300, you put that third fight from the top, you do a 3 title fight, and you put that buried as like this ain't the one to sell for us. Yeah. That's what I would do, or, even co-main event. And so I'd do that. Let me ask you this, because a couple, Bob Chimpson is saying this in the chat. Do you feel better about Belal Muhammad's chances now, or do you feel worse?
I feel about the same as I did about Muhammad's chances, because again, what I saw tonight is what it looks like when you just let Edwards fight an Edwards fight. He's fighting someone that's either horribly outmatched or isn't doing anything to force him out of his comfort zone. Whatever a fight between him and Muhammad looks like, it's not going to look like that. Like, Muhammad won't just sit there and get like jabbed up and leg kicked and try one takedown in the first 3 rounds.
Totally agree. And I'm not just saying that because obviously hindsight is 2020. I would have said this before the fight, that Belal Muhammad would be, at this point of their career, would have been a harder matchup for Leon Edwards than Colby. That said, I actually think, Colby probably does better against Bilal Muhammad, even though it could be one of these rock paper scissors kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Bilal's chances a little bit better. We don't do predictions without tape study, and it's not fair, but I could be leaning Bilal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really got to dig in, but he has this like it's my time kind of feel to him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
We talked about Colby, and I'll throw this in the chat because Colby is tough to do what you do him. He's obviously still a character. I do think the character is kind of hitting its peak. It's kind of like when you watch a TV show and it was brilliant, but then like after like the 5th season of Dexter, you're like, all right, dude, I'm kind of done.
Like, how are there any people left in Miami? At this point,
yeah. How many freaking serial killers do you have, Miami?
Like, I guess it's kind of fitting considering that Colby's like moved to Miami. Yeah,
yeah. It's kind of how eventually the UFC is going to have that with Colby. I came up with 3 names, and one of them was Michael Page coming off just the chat right now.
I don't hate that, but I'm like Covington. He still has drawing power, and he has the ability to stir up interest in an otherwise uninteresting fight or a fight with an otherwise uninteresting guy. So I'm channeling a little bit of Keith Shillan, and I'm like, I'm going to spend and get as much for this coin as I can.
Yeah.
Give him Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Since
I'm saying Rakhmonov, it probably needs to wait until at least June or July of next year to even get a sniff. Let him fight Covington.
What happens if Colby wins?
If Colby wins, then I want to see Colby versus Leon 3 or 2, or Colby versus Bilal or whoever's your champ.
Okay, so you think that'd be enough?
Dude, Colby beating Shavkat Rakhmonov. Well, one, if they make that fight in the first half of next year, Colby's going to be like a plus 350 underdog.
Yeah,
after what we saw.
I agree.
It's going to be an upset of the year that feels like an all-timer of an upset. He's going to have to do some things that are very different than what we've seen in his last couple of fights, especially this one. If he wins, the UFC's like, all right.
I can't imagine him winning right now.
I can't either. But if he does, then the UFC's like, all right, we've got the lightning rod, like loudmouth, who, oh, by the way, just skunked our top prospect. Let's rush him into another title shot, no matter who's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, Mel just said, "Don't ever want to see Edwards Colby again." That's a good point.
I completely agree. But what would change my mind would be if he like shocked the world and did some things to someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov that we'd never seen.
So Ben, do me a favor, don't check the chat because the chat has my answers. So I don't look at the chat. Okay. I want to set up the fight that I would do.
All right.
I'm the UFC. This is supreme being. No one has a say. I say Colby. Listen, I know your big thing gimmick is I'm not a weight bully. But dude, you're 0-3 at welterweight. You're 35. There's more interesting matches for you at 155. There's better fights we can sell. There's some backstories we can sell. UFC 300. I don't know. Second fight on the card. Main card. Colby's first debut at 155 against Dustin Poirier.
Oof. Oh, man.
Now, I know Poirier says he doesn't want to fight Colby. He doesn't want to get Colby money. I know that. But again, this being a supreme being.
Dude, everyone at AT&T wants to punch Colby if they can. Like, Alexandre Pantoja would fight Colby if he'd meet him at, like, 145. Like everybody at AT&T wants to kick Colby's ass. Like, dude, that would be a hell of a fight. And that might be the best lightweight that I would give Colby that good a chance of beating, because what's been Dustin Poirier's Achilles heel all these years, takedown defense.
Yeah, but if you asked me 9 months ago, I would have been like, oh my God, Colby runs right through him. It's not a good matchup. Now, what I've seen recently at Colby,
yeah,
I don't know.
Ant Milano saying Colby versus Beneil Dariush. I don't hate that either.
I would give Colby names. Like, imagine talking shit to Beneil Dariush.
He talked shit to Dustin Poirier.
No, he talked shit to Stephen Thompson.
Like,
and Stephen Thompson even like played off like the coolest like way possible, like laughed at and everything. That's the fight I would do. Fuck it, give. You know my favorite part of the entire week. It was the craziest. Did you see when Colby and Tony Ferguson were like talking shit to each other, and then in mid conversation they became buddies? Have you seen that clip?
I have not. I will seek that one out because I want to see the exact moment when one of Tony's like multiple personalities like elbows the other out of his head and like walks up to the front. It's like, hey, who's this guy?
They were talking shit to each other, and then they're going back and forth talking shit, and then I don't know who says it. I think Tony said something. He was like, "Without." Like gave him a compliment, like talking shit, but then gave him a compliment, and he's like, "That was a compliment." He's like, and then like Kobe's like, "All right, cool, I want you to win," and then Tony's like, "I want you to win too," and they're like, "America," they're like, "Yeah, America, motherfucker," and they're like, "Let's make America great," and they're like, "Let's take over," and they're like, "Let's go," and I'm like, "What the hell just happened?" They were just fighting with each other. I mean, in fairness, like I'm pretty sure Tony Ferguson has like schizophrenia and shit. So he made friends with one of his, one of his personalities. How would you promote Belal Muhammad Leon Edwards? Because that might be the first fight, the unfinished business kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you'll make a sizzle reel with all of Belal's, like every single strike Belal landed in the first round, you're going to put it in slow motion. So it looks like, and you get Rogan saying over the thing, nobody has ever pushed Leon Edwards like this. Like Belal Muhammad has been undefeated since the Carter administration.
You know what you could do is like take Edwards' first fight with Kamaru Usman. Every time Kamaru Usman hit him, and then just put like Belal Muhammad's face over Usman. Like, wait a minute. That was the same shorts he was wearing.
And as far as the thing promoting itself, all it's going to take is one presser at, like 2 pay-per-views before the actual one where, they bring in a couple people that are fighting in the next few months. And one of, Anik or somebody saying, you guys had a super close fight the first time out. And these two dudes will start arguing. Like they will build some heat around it because Edwards is gonna say, yeah, I was on my way to whooping your ass. You got lucky. You're lucky I poked you in the eye. Belal is gonna differ on that topic, obviously. As whatever squeeze you can get out of it, it will promote itself to that extent.
Yeah, I mean, if you put on the UFC 300, that's going to sell itself. Someone I think Technical Wealth mentioned it being in England will always, Leon Edwards could sell. I know they're coming back to Abu Dhabi being, the Muslim backstory for Belal Muhammad. Maybe you put that there. There might be the only people who like Belal Muhammad. Yeah, maybe there's some things. I mean, you're not working with much. Let's move on. We have 11 more fights to talk about. Co-main event. Alexandre Pantoja took on Brandon Royval, winning for the second time over Brandon Royval, this time by unanimous decision. Not the most fun action. I mean, it was like, it was like a Justin Gaethje fight compared to the main event. But I feel like we talked about Colby Covington fighting the worst game plan possible. I think Pantoja had this has been 2 fights in a row now where I just say Pantoja is so intelligent. He gives himself the best chance of. It's what we talk about Belal Muhammad, where it's not going to be fun. People aren't going to be super excited about it, but he's going to give himself the best chance of winning. And it's been 2 fights in a row that I've been really impressed with him.
Completely agree on both counts because both times he was fighting guys, well, 1 named Brandon, and 2 guys who are incredibly dangerous offensively, but have known holes in their game. And Pantoja just had a perfect game plan both times. Credit to, Marcos Pahumpa for putting together those game plans. Credit to Pantoja for following. Oh, dude, he might be the best. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said, yeah, of their 3 head coach guys, it goes Mike Brown, Pahumpa, Conan. It might be Pahumpa now. Anyway,
Either way, yeah.
But yeah, brilliant. And basically, this fight for me, if you take their first fight, you write the story of that fight, and then you just go after it with a highlighter and a marker. You can just highlight and underline things because all the dynamics from their first fight just played out in a longer, less ambiguous fashion here. The whole thing for me really hinged on Royval not being able to stop the takedown.
He's a terrible wrestler. Defensive wrestler, terrible.
And yeah, because in the first fight, I said, yeah, he lost the first round because when he got taken down, he spent too much time dicking around for leg locks and stuff and low percentage things. And, it just didn't work here. It was clear he didn't want to get taken down. He occasionally did some of the right things trying not to get taken down, and they just didn't work. It's just...
He doesn't know how to sprawl with the hip bone, putting the pressure on the shoulder area, not over the top. He doesn't understand turning the corner. He doesn't understand laces down when you sprawl. Some small he spent some time in an actual wrestling room he would pick up. When I go over my notes with Pantoja, I feel like all of my notes that I write from was displayed here because he does enough on his feet where he's threatening. You can't ignore it. He's got enough power, but he fight even when he's tired. He looks tired. He does enough to kind of still not letting the opponent really get into a rhythm, and then he closes distance. And his wrestling is really underrated. I mean,
yeah.
There was a part in the 5th round. He shot in on Brandon Royval, and it was really Royval's only chance. He was kind of overwhelmed with volume. It seemed like, he was kind of going all out. I mean, I got to end the fight. Pantoja is kind of running on fumes at this point, but still to get in the hips. But the way he cut the corner, and specifically the way he changed the angle of his shoulder, it was fantastic. It was exactly what you're supposed to do. And, you have grapplers who wrestle, but they're not wrestlers. And then you have a guy who understands the wrestling game, and Pantoja is one of them. And then he has all that grappling that's good about jiu-jitsu with him.
Yeah.
So I can shit on BJJ sometimes, but he has the stuff that works. I apologize for jumping in.
The counterexample is Jacoby, where obviously one of the greatest grapplers ever to cross over to MMA and became a very effective wrestler just on pure physical horsepower. He never became a good technical wrestler, but it worked until the end. Completely agree here. And man, in a division where there's never been a champ since Demetrius Johnson where you went, this guy is bulletproof, this guy is airtight. Pantoja feels...
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He feels like a safer champ than a lot of the other guys. With Moreno's amazing, but he never felt unbeatable.
No.
Even Figueiredo, it was okay, he's destroying people, but he's a huge guy. He has a ton of trouble making weight. He gets cracked from time to time. His gas tank is iffy.
He's been accused of being unmotivated.
Yeah. With Pantoja, it's he's a little older than we'd like, especially in this division, but
sure,
he's about as airtight as they've been, again, since Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah, I love when he gets the fight to the ground. I mean, he's an absolute wizard. He. Let me ask you this question: If we're basing guys, we're saying this is their strongest base. How many BJJ practitioners would you say that was their strongest base that became champions at this part of MMA? Not talking 93, 94. And what I mean that is you can make take a Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is the first guy I thought of. Well, Charles Oliveira is the submission threat. Obviously, he's one of the most submissions in UFC history, and you can make an argument for that. But you could also make the argument that Charles Oliveira is a kickboxer because of how many guys he starched on the feet.
It's the exact same thing that happened if you double his size with Fabricio Verdum. I think of them as very parallel, where Verdum was a dangerous guy who became an elite guy once his striking caught up to his jiu-jitsu.
Pantoja, I like his strike. He definitely, like, especially when he was brawling, he got some knockouts, early back in the day. So he's not. I'm not saying he's one dimensional, but I don't know anybody who would argue any other base over his BJJ. Do you get what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone would say, "Oh yeah, he's BJJ."
Yeah.
Who else is the guy that has reached this level? Where you'd say this is a BJJ practitioner. Other than maybe Charles Oliveira. Like, you might go Charles Oliveira, you might go Fabricio Verdum.
Man, that's a great question, because all the guys I'm thinking of, there's like, yeah, but he's a great boxer too. Like, I'm thinking of BJ Penn.
Sterling?
I'm thinking of Fabricio. I'm thinking of Glover Teixeira.
Maybe Aljamain Sterling.
You know what?
But
Maybe Aljamain Sterling.
More wrestling though.
Well,
would you say wrestling? Or would you say maybe BJJ? But there's a couple.
Because he's a funk style wrestler, they flow into each other a little more seamlessly, because his wrestling tends to create scrambles anyway, and he trusts himself to come out on the better end of that. Like, he didn't learn the Suluev stretch, in a wrestling room. Just that's what happens when you get a funk style wrestler and he takes to grappling so well.
Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Pantoja's one-dimensional. I was just complimenting his striking. I'm not talking about the people in chat. And I'm talking about champions, because people are naming all kinds of guys. I specifically said champions.
Specialists can make it into the top 10 or even top 5.
Oh, yeah.
Or be multiple-time title challengers. I mean, look at Damian Maia. But to actually win the whole thing.
But still, while I even just said that his biggest basis is BJJ, that's his strongest avenue of victory, I still think it's his intelligence. The way he does stuff, the way he controls, the way he never really got let Royval get controlled and get busy. I'm really impressed with Pantoja.
Yeah. I mean, you just heard me, call him not the greatest or the best, but the most solid feeling flyweight champ since the original Demetrius Johnson. He just feels like the guy with the fewest holes in his game, or at least with the intelligence to not expose those flaws to his opponent unnecessarily.
Yeah. Like, if he loses, he got beat because the guy's better than him and has better skills. Yeah. He didn't give himself a poor game plan where he lost because why'd you do that? I did that because the guy's faster than me and I had no choice. The guy caught me.
If you have one better skill, that's not enough, because anytime they were standing for about more than 45 seconds, Royval was getting the better of it. I mean, just at faster hands, longer reach, seemed to land with at least as much power when he landed.
I don't know about the power, though. I think Pantoja was the one. Pantoja rocked Royval's legs buckled a couple times.
You know what? That moment in the first round was probably the single hardest strike of the fight. But beyond that, I mean, and you might be right. I'll end up rewatching this, I'm sure, ahead of either or both of these guys' next fight. But I felt as though Royval was getting the better of things on the feet for most of the fight. Just he couldn't keep it on the feet.
And one thing before we move on, I want to compare Royval's corner to Covington's corner hanging in the 5th round. Because Royval's corner was told him everything he needed. Like, dude, you need a stoppage, but what you need to do is when he shoots in, you got to unhook, but you got to unhook, circle away, break away, and it's got to be high volume. We got to stop this guy. He was tired. This is why, and I love the speech that he gave him. 16 years for these 5 minutes. Like, he gave the perfect advice. Unfortunately, you can have the perfect game plan. You have the perfect advice. You have a great fighter. He was executing it, and sometimes guys are just better. Yeah. I have no issues with what Royval did in this fight. Pantoja's just much better than him.
Yeah, Pantoja's better than him, and the chat is just absolutely raking me over the coals for thinking that Royval was getting the better of the striking, and that is A-okay. I'm fine being wrong.
I don't think Royval reacts to strikes well, because there was sometimes he got hit and he was like chicken dancing for a second. I'm like, oh my god, is he hurt? But then he just turned the corner and he seemed fine. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. I just one of these guys that he doesn't. I don't know. Who's fighting for the title next against Pantoja?
The Moreno Albazi winner.
Yeah, I kind of had the same one circled. Obviously, if Albazi beats Brandon Moreno, I mean that's ideal for. I don't want to say ideal for UFC because Moreno. I mean, we saw the reaction of the crowd tonight. Yeah. The Mexican, he's a very popular, he's most popular guy in the division. But having the new face and new matchup is good. I also think Moreno and Pantoja. That's a lot of people's fight of the year. So yeah. You were saying that Pantoja. I definitely agree with you. He doesn't have a glaring hole. But Moreno is so skilled that obviously he's such a threat. Mm-hmm. The first match was so close. Yeah, I mean, is there really anybody else to do?
Well, I mean, if Kopp beats Nicolau at, I think it's literally the next event, like 4 weeks from today, Kopp will have won 4 or 5 straight in the UFC. He's obviously an exciting guy. He has rare knockout power for the division. So you can make a case for Kopp as a fresh face, former champ from another promotion. I don't hate that.
Okay. Royval's in a really tough situation because, when you have 2 losses to the champion, the current champion, you kind of need somebody else to knock him off for you to kind of get back to the title picture. So I'm going to book him with a guy that we saw on this card. And I think the guy finally does, needs a big step in competition. I'm going to go with Tajia Ulanbekov.
I mean, he's incredibly dominant recently, as recently as tonight. It doesn't bother me one bit.
Let's move on. Stephen Thompson took on Shavkat Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov won by second round submission. Dude's a killer. Like, what a killer.
He really is. And on one hand, it wasn't as effortless a thrashing as some of his fights have been. But on the other hand, he proved a little bit of something because Rakhmonov's best win up until now was probably Jeff Neal.
Mm-hmm.
And Neal was actually giving him some trouble on the feet, early in the fight. Here, Thompson, one of the best strikers in MMA history, still one of the best strikers in the sport. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Thompson, even at 40, is still taking down other elite strikers and making it look effortless. And Rakhmonov was fine. And he was able to get Thompson down, even though Thompson's takedown defense looked good. Like Thompson, in terms of doing the right things without hesitation. Like, you can't help it if the guy that's on you is younger, bigger, stronger, and a great wrestler. But he did his best to try to keep this thing on the feet. And when he was on the feet, he was classic Stephen Thompson, just trying to stay at his preferred range, using that incredibly dexterous front foot to, back Rakhmonov off of him. Yeah, I was impressed with Rakhmonov's performance, and Thompson didn't lose too much in defeat here.
Well, talking about Rakhmonov, why I'm impressed with him is, he did enough on the feet. Obviously, I do think he was outmatched, but he has a little Pantoja where he puts himself in the best avenue for victory. I agree with Luke Wilson. I said in the previous show, I do think his wrestling's good, not elite, but he still, he might not have got the takedown. It might take him a while to get Stephen Thompson down, and midway through the second or whatever when he finally, early in the second when he got him down, but he still was shoulder positioning and making him work. Sometimes it's not always the takedown. It's the threat of the takedown. It's the controlling. He did all that. He's a killer, but he's not the killer in the sense, he looked like much different in his last 2 fights than he did, what he did to like, or was it Neil Magny, where but I've learned he's that guy that he's getting the deep waters. He's a guy that he's like, if he was like a cyclist, he's the guy, on the straightaway, I'm doing good. I'm middle of the pack, but we're about to hit the hills. And Lance Armstrong, I'm gonna make my run to the front as we're going up the mountain, and he's that guy. Like when he took Stephen Thompson down, it wasn't to do damage, it was just controlling, working him, getting him frustrated, controlling, working him, getting frustrated. and then he locks on a submission. Slowly working his arm behind his back, stuff like that. He might be a guy, like, when we watch the fight and we think it's close, like the first round, like, I thought like Thompson had some success and I did score for Rakhmonov, but it wasn't like a blowout.
Yeah.
I don't think Stephen Thompson was happy. Like, he probably was like, this sucks.
Oh,
like,
100%.
fuck. Like, I think he's that guy. And the dude's got 18 wins and 18 stoppages. I mean, that's how you promote that guy.
Agreed. That and the coolest hat in the UFC. I mean, the giant Ushanka that looks like a whole ass dead deer on his head is just completely outstanding.
Yeah. And, to his credit, he's the first guy to stop Stephen Thompson.
With a submission.
Yeah, with a submission. Yeah. So that is a pretty good accomplishment in itself. So, yeah, I'm sorry for saying stop. I meant subbing Stephen Thompson. I mean, I know who was it? Anthony Pettis knocked him out.
Yeah.
which seems so weird now saying.
It was, and you know what? I hate to call it a fluke, but they fight 10 times. It only looks like that one time. It was a hell of a punch after getting actually kind of tooled for most of the fight. Yeah.
We'll talk about Rakhmonov and what we do with him moving forward. Obviously he's the guy that, say what you want about Stephen Thompson. They wanted Rakhmonov to win. I watched Stephen Thompson and I love the guy, and I hate even saying something bad about him. It's like he's like Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers could do like a question mark kick. Like, he's such a good dude. I just wonder if his loyalty to his family, actually, and specifically to his dad, and I'm sure he's he really is a wonderful human, so I'm sure he's a wonderful person himself. I wonder if that's stunted his growth as a fighter, because being that he never spent time in a heavy wrestling team, I just wonder what could Stephen Thompson have done if he went to, and some guys never learn to wrestle.
Sure.
But if he went to Fight Ready and worked with Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, and I mean, he did spend some time in wrestling heavy camps, but not until too late. He was already a fully formed creature as a fighter when he spent like several years working with Weidman at Serra-Longo.
Yeah, but it was still like, it was like week here, week there. It was never his main team. He'd always worked with his dad and doing karate classes and his freaking gi and shit. Like, he wasn't grinding in the gym, sweating, getting work in with the Iowa wrestling team or something like. And it might never have worked. It might have done nothing for him, but I just wonder what would have happened.
And there are multiple differences, but that's one big difference why Lyoto Machida has a belt and Stephen Thompson never quite made it.
Yeah. No, I want to be clear. I know it's easy for me to say, leave your family and go train 6 weeks at a time at this place. Like, I'm in the wrestling community. I know a lot of really, really high level wrestlers, and some of them I said, man, they're wasting away in New England. Like, these guys should be, going to Blair Academy, going to Wyoming Seminary, going to Gilroy, going to these big teams and grinding with the best guys in the country. But then I say, yeah, it's easy for me to say to this guy, yeah, send your son away to go live, in another state when he's 15 years old. Like, I get that's easy for me to say than doing it with my own son, So I get that. And obviously Stephen Thompson's 40 years old, so it's a little different than a 15-year-old kid. But the point still remains. You get my point.
Yeah.
Rakhmonov, we talked about Colby Covington. Is there anybody else like that's, because the problem is like, who else is there?
Anyone else you match him up with is either ridiculously below him and it's an obvious stay busy fight, or it's someone else who's also on the way up, and why crash him into Shavkat Rakhmonov if you don't have to? Give him an elite fighter with a big name who's coming off a loss.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Like, it would be the height of injustice to make him and Bilal Muhammad fight each other. Like, why make a 6-fight win streak in the UFC and a 10-fight unbeaten streak? Why make one of those have to break?
Yeah. On the flip side, Stephen Thompson, I'm going to disagree with one thing you said. You said Stephen Thompson didn't lose much. I think he lost time. Like, time is not his friend. He still talked, and I think it's more of his promo talk during countdown shows than what everyone else thought, because he was still talking about, I beat Rakhmonov. I could be fighting for that. Yeah, I'm going to be asked for a title fight. And it's like,
well, what else is he going to say? The only other thing he could say is, I know this is like my punishment fight for not being willing to fight like a heavy guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I give him Sean Brady. I know that's a terrible stylistic matchup for him, but to me at this point, you're just using his name to get over people.
Yeah. And Brady looked great in his last fight, but that's still a dangerous fight because, if Brady's up 2-0, but sucking wind at the end of the second, it's interesting.
And get Cressy kicked in the head, or axe kicked. Yeah. And it'd be good news for Kelvin Gastelum, because then Brady can get off of him.
Yeah. Luke Wilson says Jack Della Maddalena. Della Maddalena has a fight coming up.
Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, Gilbert Burns.
So they kind of do the same thing, like try to get a Della Maddalena with Gilbert Burns. Though that's a lot tougher stylish matchup than Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
Is. Juice X is talking about karate combat. I can't get a karate combat with Stan Alves, heavyweight champion. I can't get it to.
Oh boy,
it's too bad. I like Ross Levin too. That I'm friends with his wife. She's a really nice woman. It's local. They're Rhode Islanders. So, let's move on. Tony Ferguson took on Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett winning by unanimous decision. Let's do this. Let's separate these two guys. Let's talk about Paddy Pimblett, then we'll talk about Tony Ferguson.
Okay.
Paddy Pimblett won a unanimous decision, won pretty much every second of the fight. Do you feel like you weren't that high? I'm a little higher on Paddy Pimblett than you are. Do you feel a little better?
I don't.
Yeah, because I feel worse. I feel worse.
And I don't feel any better or especially worse, again, because I was probably a little lower on Pimblett than you are. Just Pimblett is a fun but not very positionally sound grappler who is prone to getting in wild brawls on the feet and has a habit of getting rung up by fighters he shouldn't. From his debut against Luigi Vendramini up until here against the ghost of Tony Ferguson, he's still getting caught clean by everybody. And there are so many fighters in the top 20 at lightweight who will put him in a pine box for some of the stuff he does in these fights.
Yeah, so something that I liked. So before the fight started, he stepped in the cage, and I forget who else. Someone else tweeted this out. I don't remember who wrote this, but I had the same thought. Like, he looked physically good. Like, he looked like he put on some muscle. Yeah. His shoulders looked ripped up. I'm like, because usually Paddy is a little doughy, Yeah. As doughy as like a 155-pound fighter could be. So,
right.
But that wasn't the case. I'm like, he put on some muscle. I'm like, oh, this dude.
Yeah.
So I like that, but they talk. He starts fighting. His chin is still high in the air. And then, as everybody is talking about in the chat, dude gassed out in the third round.
And we had Rogan on the mic. I'm surprised we didn't get all those muscles need oxygen.
It's funny because, it wasn't a fight where you think like, okay, there's reason why like he really went for the kill. And he landed some big power shots, and there was moments where he kind of turned it up a little bit. But he didn't have one of these moments where he threw like 80 strikes straight, trying to end the fight for, in 40 seconds. It was consistently just pounding a guy. And to be all offense with nothing coming back at you, never really be in a tough situation, never really fighting off submission attempts, never really in trouble, to suddenly just looked really tired in the third round. He still got a takedown. He still won the third round. I just like, this is the ghost of Tony Ferguson. Like this is I don't feel better about it. I've always said this, where the heading into the UFC, I always thought that Paddy was worse than the era Helwani who hypes him up, and well, not anymore, but at that time he did, and the European fans, specifically the English fans. I always thought he was worse than that, but then I felt like he was better than the hardcores who tend to hate him.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like he was somewhere in between. I'm starting to think he's on that. I'm kind of moving to your category. Like I feel like if you want Paddy to become something, UFC matchmaking, you really got to protect him.
You do, and just for the record, it's not like I hate him. I don't even hate his personality. I think he's hilarious. Like it's so.
I like his personality too.
Yeah, it's so rare to get people in the sport. I mean, we've just been talking about the litany of upsetting things that Colby Covington has said over the last few years. It's rare to get fighters who talk a big game, but it's mostly in good fun. It's more building themselves up than putting the other fighter down. And you get occasional moments of truthfulness breakthrough where they're not just on and not just in character. Like when you heard Paddy say that, I want Tony Ferguson to go out on a win, just not against me. And this is a lose-lose situation for me. You could tell that he was being real. Yeah. So the division's a more interesting place if he turns out to be better than I think he is. So I would love to be wrong here. I just see a guy that the UFC is already slow rolling him to the best of their ability, and he almost certainly should have lost a fight against a featherweight in his last fight. Here, he let Tony Ferguson hang out way too long. Like, if he keeps winning fights, they're not going to be able to shield him from at least. I mean, someone recommended 38-year-old Bobby Green. I think Bobby Green would tool Paddy Pimblett.
I think Bobby Green would starch him.
Yeah, like I just first round knockout, easy.
Someone mentioned Drew Dober. It's like, dude, why do you hate Paddy Pimblett? Like, why do you hate that guy?
Yeah,
because Drew Dober would fucking starch this dude.
Yeah,
and then when him and Matt Frivola were going at it for a little while ago. Oh my god, Frivola would smoke this guy.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a Paddy Pimblett hater. I like his personality.
And whoever recommended Jalen Turner earlier in the chat, you were evil.
Yeah, like these guys would kill him. Juice X went with a fight that I was thinking of, UFC 300 against Jim Miller. I think Jim Miller beats him.
I was saving that for if Tony wants to keep fighting and he doesn't get cut.
So I'll give you my fight with Paddy, and we'll talk about Tony in a second because I got a lot of things to say about Tony.
Okay.
You've heard me say this before. One thing about Paddy is his personality, but some people are bigger other places than they are other places. Like,
sure.
There's
dude. I live in Houston. Like Derek Lewis in Houston is different than Derek Lewis anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. The Dropkick Murphys are bigger in Boston than they would be in Houston.
Yeah.
The NFL has always tried and successfully kind of make a market in England and Europe, but the Super Bowl ain't going to Europe.
No,
like they might push it, but the Super Bowl ain't going to Europe. Just like, there's times that, like, I'm sure it happens in Houston too, but like a big soccer team will come to New England and sell out Gillette Stadium. It'll be, I don't know. I apologize to European people, but you know what I'm talking about. The friggin' Real Madrid, or I don't know if they're coming, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And all the Americans pretend to be like, oh, my great grandfather was from Portugal. Oh, they paint their faces and shit. But that matchup's still bigger in Portugal and England and Spain and Italy and France and wherever soccer countries are. Paddy's bigger in England because his entrance is always fun. Like, did you see the part with that part in the song where he really gets hyped up?
Yeah. Like
no one reacted to it. But if he was in England, they all reacted at that moment. That's like their theme song or some shit. I love Paddy Pimblett entrances.
Yeah.
In England. And I was just like, I was so disappointed. It was like just another like entrance. I've said this before about it. I'm going to do it again. If I ran the UFC, every single one of his fights would be England. And I would protect him. I would keep giving him bum after bum. So I'm headlining him. This is people are gonna get pissed off about this. I'm headlining him in England. Headline, the fight night main event. And I'm giving him Clay Guida.
I'm so much meaner than you. This is not normally the dynamic of the Shillan and Duffy show. I don't care if it's in England, but I'm giving him the not top 10, but like say 15 to 20 guy he's kind of earned. Names I had on my list: Nasrat Haqparast, Terrence McKinney, Matt Frivola. He could beat McKinney if he gets out of the first round.
Yeah, McKinney's the one. If I'm his team, I'm going for. But holy Christ, it would be scary that first 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
McKinney's the one that would probably hurt him worse. Frivola starches him. Haqparast probably starches him.
The Haqparast we saw last week came out guns a-blazing.
Starches him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Tony Ferguson. I think it's cruel to have this guy fight anymore.
And borderline irresponsible. And
I totally agree.
I am as slow as they come to say, okay, this fighter needs to retire. There are plenty of fighters that I'm uncomfortable watching them continue to fight, but until I live in a world where some well-meaning stranger could make me quit my job for my own good, I will prefer to err on the side of personal responsibility. Having said that, I think it's getting to the point where it is irresponsible to continue to book Tony. And the responsibility for that comes first with Tony and the people around him who love him. Him, family, his closest confidants and handlers. Dude, it was alarming. If I may for a moment, it was alarming that Joe Rogan, of all people, was talking about, I talked to Tony's dad. He was here in town, and Tony's dad is worried that he doesn't have a real coach or corner second.
Was that Joe Rogan or was that Chael Sonnen?
Oh, was it Chael?
I think it was Chael.
No, you're right. It was Chael. It was during the whole pre-thing.
Yeah, regardless. Okay. No. They pulled back the curtain. That was that's supposed to be like private conversation.
Yeah, and this is Chael Sonnen, a guy that does not let you behind the curtain very often. And that was a sobering conversation. Yeah. And that's coming from Chael, whose job it is to make you think that the event that's about to go on is worth your time and a great thing.
Yeah. He's had mental health issues, very public.
Yep.
I'm not going to pretend. So a guy said this to me the other day, a guy I love. So right now in Rhode Island, a big story is, so there's really two main highways. There's 95 north and south, and then there's I-95 east and west. Well, 95 west bridge is so bad. They, like, in the middle of the week, they're like, the new inspector was like, this needs to be shut down immediately. Like, this is a hazard. Like, people are going to die if we don't shut this down. So they shut that down, and it turned into like 2.5 hour delays. Like, it's a big deal. And the guy says to me, he goes, yeah, it's really weird that all these people that were experts on vaccines and health are suddenly now experts on bridge building, like kind of. So, which is kind of funny. So I'm not an expert on CTE and brain injury, so I'm not going to pretend to be. But if anybody does, I mean, the things he says at press conferences, like, what the fuck are you talking about, Tony? Like, he's fucked up in the brain, and it's getting worse. And yeah, I know Dave Goggins, he's a former Navy SEAL. Like, I don't really follow. Like, he's
he's a super marathoner now, so he runs these things that are like 5 marathons in a row, like 130-mile
races. But isn't he like a motivational speaker too, or something like that? Yeah. So like, that's cool. Like, whatever, you're into motivational speaker, cool. Like, I'm sure the guy's fucking wicked, like hardcore, like cool. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he could probably help everybody's life some way.
Yeah. Like, that's a great guy for like the Jocko podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to get a 40-year-old man ready for a fight.
But the guy, you're going to train with him, and then you have him not like, if you're like, hey, I want to just do this for self-belief in myself because I know it's crazy hard. Okay. And then I'm going to finish my camp. I'm going to do a camp with this. Okay. But then having the guy corner, and did you hear his advice? In between the first and second rounds, he didn't say a single thing. And then right when they were breaking, like get off the stool, he goes, "Gotta focus, Tony." That was his advice. Then between the second and third, he wasn't the guy behind the fighter outside the cage. He was the guy inside the cage, and his advice was, again, focus, do what you got to do, and then one point he goes, power. Like, listen, I'm sure he's cool. Like, I bet you I like the guy.
Yeah,
really. Like, he's great at what he does, but like, I love Tom Hanks movies. Like, Tom Hanks makes really good movies.
Sure.
Like, Tom Hanks ain't gonna corner me.
No, because
like,
motivation. Being a motivational speaker isn't about delivering detail.
No.
It's just about making you raring to go for whatever it is you know you need to do.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you need to do, then getting more motivated isn't going to help.
Like, I'm a Dave Ramsey disciple. I think he's fantastic financial whiz. He's not going to be my corner man in fighting.
Nope.
You know, like, whatever. Who's your favorite musician? You know, it's Steven Tyler. I don't know who's your guy. Axl Rose. He's not going to be my corner man. Like, you don't hire a landscaper to do electrical work. Hey, like, what are you doing, dude? And it just keeps getting crazier and crazier with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching Stephen Thompson, and I didn't know this was obviously much different, but the Tenacious D, Jack Black, and them came down because of his song. Like, that was cool.
Yeah.
But like, there was like a guest thing, like, okay, you want to, it's like kind of like when the UFC does, like, some guy wins a contest and like picks his favorite fighter and he can walk down with him.
I mean, somebody got walked out by a soldier that
cool.
won a contest.
Yeah, cool.
You know, and they got to walk down, like, kind of give him a pat on the shoulder, like, go get him.
Give him a hug,
But it wasn't like, okay, you got to watch, you got to check the inside leg kick, and
like Tony Ferguson will probably be like, see Jack Black in the back and be like, that's what I need. I need to, you know what? I'm not laughing enough. I need to laugh more. Let me get, I'm taking it too serious. I get Jack Black. He'll tell some jokes. I mean, he was in School of Rock. He got all those kids living up to their best potential. Yeah. That's what I need. And then fucking Jack Black will be his next coach.
Yeah.
Bass has mentioned Mike Perry's girlfriend. Hey, Mike Perry's on a nice little run in bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah, but the joke's on us because it's like 3 girlfriends later for him.
I don't watch bare knuckle boxing. Yeah. I'm not even doing who Tony should fight next, because I mean, fucking Jack Black might be the only guy associated with the UFC that the guy can beat now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, the guy now has the all-time losses in a row record. He can't possibly fight again. Like, what fight would make even sense?
Dude, well, here's how bad it is. Like, Scotty B was like Ferguson versus Nate Diaz, because it's easy to forget that he already lost to Nate bad. Like, unless you were saying you wanted like Ferguson versus Nate too. No, I have 3. 1, retire. 2, Mike Perry and BKFC, because if he leaves the UFC, I can't stop him. 3, Clay Guida, because Clay Guida would beat him, but probably wouldn't hurt him too bad.
Yeah, like the UFC 300, like, just put it on that card.
Yeah,
I don't want to see him fight. I'm going with retire the guy.
Just put Guida, Ferguson, and Miller in the cage at the same time.
It's not even fun. Like, the shit he used to do when during press conferences was fun. Now it's just like, it's sad. I feel like watching him fight. I feel like, you ever seen those videos where Delonte West is like a homeless guy and he's begging for money?
No, but that makes me sad.
Have you seen him? Oh, it's terrible. When people videotape and they go, it's funny. Oh, there's Delonte West. He's begging for money.
That's terrible.
Like, that's why I feel like Tony Ferguson, like, fighting now. It's like, oh, remember when that guy used to be like, not like, I was want to think the freaking, like, remember when the dream fight was to watch him and Khabib fight each other? And now it's like, holy moly. Anyways, let's move on, because we this one will save us a lot of time. Bryce Mitchell took a fight on 2 weeks' notice to take on Josh Emmett, and he got knocked out in one of the scariest knockouts I've ever seen.
Yeah, late candidate for knockout of the year. And it depends on what makes a knockout of the year for you. I mean, it has to have some amount of stakes. If you just want to see people get knocked the fuck out, you can go to World Star.
Sure.
Technique matters. Like when it's, Edson Barboza or Joaquin Buckley doing this unbelievably just precise bit of violent ballet. That's something.
Sure.
And then there's just who got the most knocked the fuck out? Who got knocked out the hardest of anybody this year? I don't know that I've seen many people get knocked out worse than Bryce Mitchell got knocked out tonight in going on 20 years of watching this.
I've been watching MMA. I've been watching MMA for 28 years. UFC 6 was my first ever, the debut of Tank Abbott. And I was thinking it might have been the debut of Tank Abbott. The last time I saw someone knocked out with their freaking
You're thinking
shaking on the ground.
Matua or the Nel Martin?
Yeah, John Matua, where it was the first fight I ever saw. And
all downhill from there.
Yeah. 28 years. I'm like, the way he dropped and he put him out asleep. And actually at first looked like a guy who was actually like peacefully sleeping.
Yeah.
Until he started shaking,
then had a bad dream, apparently. Or like one of those dreams like where a dog is dreaming about something and it's like trying to run.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. And the funny thing is, the narrative going in, at least the narrative on the Shillan and Duffy preview is, Emmett's power is overrated. He hasn't knocked anyone out since 2019.
Yeah. I literally I'll show you my notes. I will never call Emmett's power overrated again. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
Holy Christ.
I'm just terrifying knockout on the replay. Just, Mitchell coming in, hand is down, Emmett clocks him with an overhand, and it is, wow, just so knocked out. Like, I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. And Mitchell ain't the guy that needs head damage.
Nope.
He's already got a couple screws loose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's worrisome. And I mean, what else did I say? That was an extremely quick fight and good for Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett needed something. Not only did he need to win, but man, that's the way he got back on the winning track.
Yeah, I mean, Emmett he's not Tony Ferguson, but he's a guy that would have been on my possible retire list if he lost bad to Mitchell tonight.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier told a story on the
pop chips are killing me
on the weigh-in show where he told a story about someone he knows that they, I guess, wrestled with Josh Emmett. But they never saw him fight live, and they were going to this fight because they know he's got very few fights left, so they want to see him fight in the UFC live. Good one to go to.
Yeah.
What we do with him? I mean, because it's fun, but at his age, I'm not getting too excited about him.
No, because again,
great win,
and
a great fighter.
And I hesitate to use the word fluke. He threw the punch he meant to throw. It landed perfectly. A man almost died,
and he shows he has that power to do that.
Yeah, but if they fought 10 times, no matter how many times Emmett wins, it only looks like that once.
If not, then Mitchell's really in big trouble.
Emmett was supposed to fight Giga Chikadze here. Remake that fight.
Yep. I wrote that down.
At least Chikadze has something to think about now.
No, yeah.
He's like, all right, so keep my hands up. Okay.
I wrote that with I put pay-per-view main card opener. Like, I think that deserves to main card. Mitchell's in a tough situation now because he's lost 2 out of 3 fights. That division, is loaded. He's fought a lot of top guys. I'm stepping him down, but because of his name, I feel like he still needs to get matched with a name because he's a very marketable. I mean, the guy was on freaking Tucker Carlson this week.
The guy had custom shorts for like his second UFC fight.
Yeah,
think about that for a sec.
Why do we? Can I rant for a second?
Of course.
There's a lot. Okay, I'm a Republican. There's a lot of Republicans in MMA. Why do all the extremists have to be the guys that like represent MMA fighters? Like, like Colby and Bryce Mitchell, and like, can we get like a well-spoken like Republican guy? Anyways, I'm putting on UFC 300 Mitchell, and I'm giving him. And now that might be too quick of a turnaround, but I'm giving him Alex Caceres.
Okay. I think we've got Charles Jourdain and Sean Woodson fighting pretty soon. I was going to give him like the loser of that.
Oh, him and Jourdain. Jourdain is fun.
He is. And Woodson, it would at least be one hell of an interesting matchup. Like,
oh, I can see it right now. Bryce Mitchell be talking about David Goliath and shit. Yeah. He probably friggin' come out with a slingshot or something. Friggin' putting a rock right in the middle of friggin' Sean Woodson's forehead. Yeah, I'm filling up. I don't know. I just started thinking of tonight. I was doing my matchmaking, and I thought of a lot of UFC 300 fights. I filled half the card already.
Like when we
I don't have a main event. I don't have a main event, but I got all the prelims and main card filled.
When we do the preview for UFC 300 and it's 18 fights, I'm gonna let you know my displeasure, dude. Like,
hey, you ready for UFC 300? I want you to do it real quick. This is not like official, but you pick one main event. Because a lot of the champs are booked. Give me one main event.
Jones versus somebody.
He's not gonna be back in time.
Well, shit. Then it gets real interesting, man.
Okay, I put Connor. I don't do Michael Chandler. As much as these poor guys mowing, I call up Nate Diaz. I do Connor Nate 3.
The casuals will love it.
And all the hardcores hate me, but the casuals will love it. And you need to give Connor a win. If you bring Connor back, you need to get a win. UFC 300. All right. Before that, my order got messed up a little bit, but Alonzo Menifield took on Dustin Jacoby. Alonzo Menifield winning a unanimous decision. Power's ultimate equalizer. That's like my keynote.
It is. I picked Jacoby to win this. I thought he was. I mean, he is the longer, more diverse, more sophisticated kickboxer. I thought he would kind of figure out Menifield as the fight went along. Those things were all correct, but just enough times Menifield clocked him so hard that I thought the fight was in danger of being stopped. And he did it enough times to win 2 rounds out of 3. I scored it for Menifield. I thought Menifield looked great. And you know what? If he can land cleanly, if he can march in that fearlessly and land that cleanly on Dustin Jacoby, that does not spell good news for a lot of the other so-called elite strikers in that division.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jacoby, like, I agree with a lot you're saying. Jacoby won like 95% of their exchanges.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's the better fighter. If you said to me, who one of these guys wins a UFC title 2 years from now, I'd say, okay, Jacoby. That said, sometimes, and we've talked about this before, the high-level kickboxers have to unlearn things. And it comes down to their defense. That's why we see a lot of high-level kickboxers getting knocked out by guys who are MMA kickboxers. Because they don't slip punches. Because they hide behind hands, and you can't do that. So, Menifield's been on a run. I mean, he hasn't lost a fight in his last 5 fights. The one fight that wasn't a win was a draw against Jimmy Crute, which he knocked him out or knocked the club and subbed him in his next fight. Menifield's on a nice little run right now. I mean, you're saying he's an issue. Like, how far can you think he can go?
You know what? I don't know how many fights he's going to win out of his next 5, but I know I'm probably going to pick every single one of them wrong because, like you said, he's got that equalizer where, you stick him in there against Alex Pereira. I don't care. Like, I'm not comfortable until the final horn sounds.
He has that Josh Emmett overhand right that can put you out. He has that.
Yeah, it's scary because even the fights, on the way to this 5-fight win streak, there are several of those people that on the right night could have just made him look kind of limited and amateurish, but they didn't. And now against Jacoby, he has a solid win against one of the better strikers in the division. Like, given the right matchups, he's already knocking on the door of the top 10.
Reminds me of this guy I used to play softball with, where he's this big, huge guy, but he wasn't that good, and like the dude could strike out in slow pitch, you know, like he was that guy. Like but he was like the worst player. We like you couldn't put him in the field, but every once in a while he'd get a hold of one and he friggin' blasted it like deep way out of the park, you know. Well, yeah, he had to get through all those strikeouts first, so the slow ground ball to the shortstop. That's how I feel about Menifield. But lately he's been hitting a lot of home runs. I book him. I book him against Victor Petrino next. That's a tough matchup. I know that is, but
I think it's a tough matchup as well. But if Petrino is 0 for 2 on takedown attempts and staring at the lights 7 minutes into that fight, are you shocked? I'm not.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Before that, let's get to the fight of the night. I mean, I haven't seen the awards yet, but I mean, this has to be the fight of the night. Irene Aldana took on Karol. What an incredible fight! I think this is a late addition to Fight of the Year. I thought it was that good.
Fantastic. It has just about everything you could want, short of, if you're the person that really, really needs the finish. But short of that, it had actual swings of momentum. It had damage going back and forth to the point where there were moments where I thought there was going to be a finish going both ways. Like if you'd asked me at the end of round 1, I was going to say Rosa's going to throw 3 more leg kicks. Aldana's leg is going to buckle and Rosa's going to jump on her and pound her out.
Yeah, Karol looked great early. I mean, she kicked the shit out of the leg. She kicked Irene Aldana's leg like a billion times. And to credit to Aldana, she didn't make adjustments. She just toughed it out, and she just like, I'm going to match your volume. And it just became a boxer versus a kickboxer. It felt like it was a sparring session with two guys who hate each other, but like you just pull them off the street. Like you pull them off the street, and that guy's a boxer, and that guy's a kickboxer, and then. And then the boxer's like, yeah, you can throw kicks. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm going to kick your ass anyways. And they just threw down.
Yeah. And on the one hand, it's very valid to call out Aldana for never really starting to check those kicks to her corner, which, hey, that is a gym that is a boxing heavy gym for, never getting on her about that. But you know what? The adjustment she made was to get sharper and meaner on the counter and make Rosa start paying for them. And Rosa never stopped kicking the legs, but she wasn't kicking them 28 times around after that first round.
No.
After she started eating, just a left, straight, or a right cross every time.
And some body shots, too.
Yeah, and some nasty shots to the body. Like, Rosa stopped throwing them quite as effectively. So
I was looking at it, and I'm like, well, this it's a good win. Like, it was a really fun fight. It's a good win. I was a little higher on Karol than you were, so I do think it's a good win coming back from the back in the UFC after a long layoff after her title shot loss. This is a huge like red flag for Aldana to move forward. Like people are gonna kick those legs, but then I started looking at the division. I'm like, well,
who's gonna kick him?
Like who's the leg kicker in the division? Like it might be Rosa. Like she might be the leg kicker in that division.
Unless we see Jermaine Duranami come back or something.
Yeah, I hope so.
Pretty good. But yeah, it's still a red flag in some ways because anyone can throw them, and if they know they're going to be that effective, maybe some will start working into their plans. But at the same time, it was the perfect performance at the perfect time because what Aldana needed to prove was that she was mentally in a fight. Like she was so inert and so gun shy against Amanda Nunes. If she had won against Rosa in a way that was, just less of a bloodbath, it wouldn't have been as impressive. Yeah. This is a woman that at this point you go, okay, if we put her in a title shot next year, which I'm about to, I'm not worried she's just going to completely no show. And I'm going to end up with a complete shit show of a fight.
Yeah, in fairness, though, throwing down in the pocket against Kelleher is a little different than throwing down the pocket with Amanda Nunes. That said, I want to give Rosa credit. Like, she does a lot of things that I like. And my one issue is you having fight of the year candidate. I get it. It's fun. Your crowd's probably going crazy. But she didn't try a single takedown in a fight against a girl that has very weak takedown defense and, standing right in front of you. No, she wasn't throwing kicks, so, you didn't have a chance to catch a kick or anything like that. But third round, 1 round each, she had opportunities. I'm like, man, she should go for a takedown and win this fight, and she didn't. And that's probably why she lost. Because she gets the takedown, she wins.
Agreed, because she gets announced as a kickboxer, and I'm sure she fancies herself a kickboxer, but there are a lot of women that like this. And if you watch any of our previews, I've said this, like Norma Dumont calls herself a Sanda practitioner. She stands like a karate fighter, but when the bullets start flying, you can tell that where she's most comfortable is just getting her hands on the other woman, getting out of space, and maybe getting the fight to the ground. Rosa's a little bit the same way. Like she has a takedown game that's more effective than it is technical, and she's mean on top. Like if she'd taken Aldana down, I think she would at least have muted enough of Aldana's offense that she would have won a lousy round and probably won the fight. Completely agree with you.
Guys are saying that she did try a takedown attempt, so okay.
Okay, she tried one in the third round.
All right, then she should have tried 2 takedown attempts.
Yes. Try him until one works.
So you're saying Aldana next take on the winner of Raquel Pennington, Mario Bueno Silva?
What else? I mean, what else are you going to do?
I'm glad you ask. I'm glad. Well, of course she's fighting UFC 300.
Oh, all right.
On the prelims, early prelims, Juliana Pena.
You know what? Pena, she's annoying, but she is a recent former champ and deserves a chance to win her way back into a title shot. I have no problem with that.
Speaking of former title champions, one of your best calls of the night there, Ben. Cody Garbrandt took on Brian Kelleher. And don't look now, but Cody No Love Garbrandt is on a 2-fight winning streak as he starches Brian Kelleher with a short shot. Though we've talked about this before, short, tight shots is the key in MMA, and we'll get to Andre Field's pretty much the same blow, short right hand. Are you feeling good about Cody Garbrandt, or are you just like, dude beat Brian Kelleher? I
do feel a little better about Cody Garbrandt.
Okay.
A glass cannon is still a cannon. Like, I still do not trust Garbrandt's durability. And I still think that however long this run goes, it's going to end in him letting himself be drawn into a firefight against someone who catches him first, and Garbrandt's going to drop like a marionette whose strings have been cut, and we're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's right. But between now and then, he is still elite. He's just 32 years old. Like, we were calling this guy washed up at like 27. Like, think about that for a sec.
Yeah.
Like, except for the chin, it's all still there. He still has some of the fastest hands in the division. Just way too much for Kelleher.
Yeah, the guy definitely has a cannonball. He still worries me because he feels like the guy, like he has a cannon, but he's a guy that like would stand in front of the cannon as he lights it. He moves well. I like that he moves well. He's still very athletic. We've seen him wrestle, against Trevin Jones. So I like that. I've always liked guys that not looking just for the knockout, like wrestle a little bit. Show some takedown defense to Brian Kelleher. I'm just worried about Kelleher. I was worried about Garbrandt being shot, and I'm never too high on Brian Kelleher, but the dude looks shot. I mean, the guy was always a mid to low UFC talent. Like, he had a couple wins in the UFC and decent wins, but still, like, he was never a guy that was ever going to be on a run or anything like that. Like, the guy's 37, coming off neck surgery, and he's been knocked out in 3 straight 3 fights in the first round. He hasn't won in a really long time. So I'm pumping the brakes. Like, he went from Brian Kelleher to calling out Davidson Figueiredo. Like, and, DC was like, oh, I love that fight. And Joe Rogan was like, yeah, that's great. And I totally could see the UFC doing that. I'm pumping the brakes on that. Like, I would rather have, and like, I said this on the previous show, like, even though I picked Kelleher, like, I was not rooting against Kelleher, but I was rooting for Garbrandt to win because it's more exciting to talk about. It's better for the sport having the return of someone like that on a stretch. I still would rather a slow roll of him. Like, I don't want him to throw right back into the top 15 guys or top 10. I should say top 10 guys. Or
again, we appear to have changed roles for the night because I'm also the in the moment guy.
okay.
I would not have thought of the Figueiredo matchup, but they were supposed to fight way back when. He was supposed to challenge Figueiredo for the title. And the thing is, I don't think you can slow roll Garbrandt.
Okay.
He's one good punch away from, again, if I'm the UFC, he is a viable potential title challenger, a viable potential headliner until he loses. Yeah. And if you put him against Figueiredo, then at least whoever comes out of that is very easy to push into a bantamweight title shot.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was kind of baiting you a little bit.
Uh-oh.
I'm giving him a guy who I don't view as a top 15 talent, though he may be in the top 15 rankings. And he also is a big name like Figueiredo. And someone already put in the chat, I'm booking him in UFC 300. And what's a bigger name than Figueiredo that has a backstory? Give me him and Dominic Cruz too. Let's do it.
Cruz just rips off the suit.
That's it. UFC 300. Cruz,
wow.
Garbrandt. I'm putting it on like the ESPN headlining fight or something like that. Give a backstory. Let him be on like the media day. Well, the media, the press conference. Let him talk shit. I'm not giving him Montel Jackson. Like Montel Jackson's gonna kill him, but yeah. All right, let's move on. Before that, Casey O'Neill took on Ariane Lipski. Someone, I apologize, who tweeted at me wanted me to tell you, Ben, stop sleeping on Ariane Lipski, even though I also picked against her, so I can't be talking shit. She looks good. But
she looked like what we thought we were getting when she came out of KSW.
Yeah,
it's not just that she's winning.
Yeah,
because she'd won some fights here and there, but they were opportunistic things. They were her flashing some underrated ground game. Here, where she's coming forward, taking ground, forcing reactions out of her opponent, hitting hard. Yes. This is why so many of us were so excited for her coming out as a sitting KSW flyweight champ. Like all of a sudden, she looks like a woman that you could call the queen of violence without like laughing out loud. This was nasty.
I thought she looked fantastic.
It'll remain to be seen how well it ages because now I'm sure we're going to talk about Casey O'Neill in a moment. She has not seemed the same in her last two fights.
Yeah, so that's why I want to ask you. That transition perfectly. I was going to ask you, like, does this reflect more on Lipski being good, or does this reflect on Casey O'Neill not being the one? Because just 2 fights ago, Casey O'Neill was the person. She was the one. She's the new. She's violent. She smashes people. She's a killer. Even like an injury against Roxanne Modafferi, where she was like fight limited, she still beat the piss out of her. Mm-hmm. But then it's like you start going over her record and who she beat, and you're like, wait a minute. She didn't beat anybody. She looked fantastic at her run, but she didn't beat anybody. And now she's looked bad in back-to-back fights. So, is it Lipski's good? Because, Lipski looked fast. She looked accurate, powerful, good variety. She gets a sub on the ground, which was kind of like her weakness. And then O'Neill, she's looking slow. Her wrestling was over. She couldn't take down Ariane Lipski. I'm kind of in between. Like, I think both can be true.
Exactly. I'm with you because, O'Neill for the second fight in a row looked kind of slow, flat, tentative. But you know what? The Lipski of 2 years ago would have found a way to lose to that O'Neill as well.
Absolutely.
She would have lost a terrible fight 29-28. Here, she looks completely transformed. So not taking anything away from Ms. Lipski just because O'Neill seems to be on the fade. Dev pointed out in the Sherdog editorial chat as well tonight, O'Neill has a habit of just kind of wading into the pocket and getting caught clean that had not really cost her too badly until this fight.
Well, Jennifer might beat her up too.
Yeah. Well, until the last two fights, I guess. Yeah, just O'Neal. There are some flaws in her basic skill set that have been exposed, and whether it's a case of injury or just kind of regressing to mean she doesn't have the physicality to make it work anymore, and she's leveled up to fighting better fighters. You know, the stuff that worked on the Shayna Dobsons of the world isn't going to work on Jennifer Maia or Ariane Lipski, apparently.
Yeah, and I think it's time for Ariane Lipski to kind of get a step up in competition to see if how true this is. So I'm booking her against Jennifer Maia. Not on UFC 300. I'll leave this one off of UFC 300.
I mean, that works for me. Otherwise, I was thinking of the woman that O'Neal was actually supposed to fight a couple months ago, Viviane Araújo.
Araújo, okay. They both of those a step. I like that too. Both of them are step up competitions.
Yeah.
We usually are really good at a consensus underdog pick. We have a very good record with that. Our consensus underdog pick this card was Cody Durden beating Tadej Ulanbekov. That was not a good pick. It
was not a good pick. And it again, if you've watched any of these recaps, there's sometimes where I get the pick wrong, but I've envisioned the fight correctly. Just something unpredictable happened. Here, no, I envisioned this fight wrong. Durden basically had nothing for Ulanbekov. In particular,
he had moments on the feet. He had moments on the feet, but when he got
moments
taken
on
down,
the feet, but couldn't stop the takedown and just was dominated positionally once they were down there. It just felt like Durden was drowning and just dog paddling and fighting for his life every second they were on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a contender. I mean, he's always had that. He's a taller guy for the weight class. He's got some pop. He dropped Durden briefly. Good jab. We always had that. Always had a bit of very good athleticism. But I thought his grappling wasn't good, but it looked better. He took down Durden, I think 2 or 3 times in the fight. Took his backpacked him with using his long legs in the triangle, eventually getting a submission. When he missed a submission early and Durden was on top, he swept him. I was like, man, this guy he looked good. He does need to handle pressure better. Like Durden landed a lot of shots on him on the feet when he was pressing forward, but I liked that he was going to this overhook, lazy step outside, lazy lateral drop. I should call it lazy when you go the other way, but stepping over the outside lateral drop, almost with a little bit of a knee tap in there. Dude look nasty. I mean, that takedown, that over under lateral drop, that's like an Aaron Brooks. If you're familiar with Penn State special, he likes that one. I've seen. Wait for it. I've seen Bo Nickel hit that one.
Ding ding ding.
He looks good, man. And I obviously I'm going higher. I already mentioned. I think it's time for him to get a step up in competition. I'm booking him against Brandon Royval, like that, like on a fight night co-main event, something like that. Would you go higher than that? Would you go lower than that? What would you do with him next?
I think it's time for a substantial step up for Ulanbekov. He lost a really close, dicey decision to Tim Elliott, who's as wily as they come, and filled out a complete bingo card of cheating that night. And aside from that, he has looked fantastic against very good fighters. Give him a step up. Royval works for me.
1 foot out the door, acid Bo Nickel and UFC 300. No, you know what we're gonna do with that one? You know when WWE now does like the host of WrestleMania. I don't know how that works, but the host of UFC 300, Bo Nickel. Before that, Andre Fili took on Lucas Almeida. Fili winning by first round TKO. I know I speak for both of us that I've sad story about him having to put his dog down this week. Kind of like, no, I'm not gonna say it. Never mind. But I was gonna make a joke about Tony Ferguson, but we should probably at least be serious for a second.
Yeah.
Almeida cost Andre Fili possibly a not go to the year candidate, because if he goes out cold, like how his head snapped back, like it looked like he should have, this would be a fight of like not go to the year candidate. I don't think it would have won, but it had that much forced and like beautiful. He didn't go out. Like,
Yeah,
he went down.
It was a video game punch. He practically went flying. Like it took him off his feet. Yeah, beautiful punch. Well,
It looked like the Emmett punch.
Yeah,
just didn't go out.
Yeah, if anything, like it was prettier on its way in than Emmett's punch. Like Emmett's punch was mostly shocking tighter for what happened afterwards. Yeah,
it was a little tighter.
Yeah, fantastic work. And another guy in Andre Fili that hadn't knocked anybody out in a long time, hadn't had a finish of any kind in quite a while. Yeah, it makes you happy. There's just something about Andre Fili that just makes you want to see him do well, which is nothing against Lucas Almeida at all. Just Fili's kind of a lovable guy. Lovable.
Yeah.
Guy.
It's nice to see Fili get a knockout, being a guy who's been in the UFC for a long time. Almeida isn't good. He's got a lot of flaws. One, he stands way too tall. I mean, his chin is wide open to get tagged. And, you throw tight shots, you got to knock him out. And that's exactly what happened. Good for Fili. I like his his post-fight speech and everything, and all the stuff he's going through. Nice to see him like one of the good guys in the sport to get a win. And first fight of the night, I know we both kind of had pretty mediocre picks all night. I think this was my worst pick. Martin Buday got beat up by Shamil Gassiev. Gassiev winning by second round TKO. 12-0. Dude's big. He's strong. I mean, heavyweight, it doesn't take too much to be a top 15 guy, but this guy has that. There's someone when not too many prospects in the division, and this guy started 3, so I don't know if I want to call him a prospect. You know what I'm saying? Like, not a lot of new guys in UFC heavyweight division. This guy's gonna get some buzz just from the record.
He is, and I picked against him going into this fight just because he had gotten to 6-0 against such low-level competition that I thought it was fair to ask what he'd look like against a fighter that actually put up some resistance. Unfortunately, we didn't get to find that out tonight because Buday just wanted no part of this. Like, another thing I hesitate to say about a fighter is that they look scared, but after about the first 15 seconds of the fight, Buday did not want any of this.
Wow, he was getting tagged up by the professional volleyball player. I mean, the guy he must have a wicked serve.
Yeah, so Buday looked terrible. He'd been the guy who had been kind of the bully in all of his UFC fights so far, and Gassiev is at least the real deal as far as he definitely belongs here.
Yeah, I mean, the key to him, we talked about this. The one fight that went decision, he really slowed down, looked really bad. So the key is to gas him out, but good luck getting it there. Trying to get this guy to gas out. Good luck. Yeah, you might get gas out, but you got to survive first.
Yeah.
So there you have it. We've covered all 12 fights. Let's get to the fun stuff. The Bulls and the Bears, the cut list, dude, seriously, all that. Let's do the cut list.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys, for the rest of you guys, I don't know if Ben's screen is frozen for me. I don't know if that's working for you guys, but he sounds good though, so I'm gonna just keep it like it is. I have 2 for the cut list. And I'll let me okay, they're the same. Ben is frozen, but Ben, you there?
I am here. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you good, so I'm gonna go let it keep going. Unless you want to jump out and come back in.
No. Like okay. I'm good. Let's go.
Yeah, your audio sounds fine. I have 2, but I didn't put Tony Ferguson on it because I'd rather have him just retire. So is that fair?
That's fair. I mean, I have 2, but one of them was Ferguson because I'm not going to leave it in his hands.
Okay. So then I'll add Tony Ferguson.
Okay.
He's a name commodity, but even at this point, like even casuals have to know that the guy is completely toast. So, give me your first name. Oh, Mo, you gave me Tony Ferguson, but give me the other name.
Brian Kelleher.
Yeah, I agree. 37 years old, 3-fight losing streak, all first round stoppages. He's a guy who seemed like he might retire himself. There you go. You're not further anymore.
Oh yeah.
I had Lucas Almeida too.
I mean, what is he? 1-2 in the UFC.
Yeah, it's 1-2. He won his first fight. He lost the last two. So it's not a terrible record.
Not a terrible record, but at this point, he's lost he's lost 2 UFC fights, and he lost on the Contender Series, and he's kind of beat up on everyone else pretty bad. He's sort of the Brazilian Jason Reinhardt or something like that.
Oh, there you go. Good job.
Just the ultimate, small pond, big fish. So I'm fine if he goes. I'm fine if he stays for another, because at least he's not getting knocked out in alarming ways that make me feel bad. So.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep him for another card. Let's go to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. You want to be in the Bulls list. You do not want to be in the Bears list. We do it 3-2-1 hockey style. Do you want to do Bulls or Bears first?
Oh, I'm fine with either. I feel like there's plenty to discuss on.
All right.
Fronts.
Let's go positive. A lot of times we do Bears first. We'll do Bulls. So. Ben, I'll let you kick it off. Give me guys or stories or something like that had whose stock is rising.
Okay. Stock rising. Ariane Lipski. Again, not just winning against an opponent that still had some amount of prospect shine and some amount of name value, but more important than who she beat is how she looked. Again, this is someone who was I think she was one of the more highly anticipated free agent signings by the UFC in the last 10 years. And she is just now finally starting to live up to that. And she's still pretty young. I believe Ariane Lipski has been on my cut list before. And now I'm like, how close is she to the title picture? That is the definition of stock up.
The only issue is she's in the wrong women's division. If she's at 135, she'd probably be fighting for the title right now.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's go Josh Emmett. Enough said.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unprecedented. One of the greatest knockouts, or at least one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen. Possible knockout of the year at the last minute on a night that he might have been fighting for his job quietly. So, yeah, fantastic. And it wasn't pretty, but give it to Leon Edwards. Didn't make too many new fans tonight, but got past a fighter who has given other champs fits. Kind of got the last word in on a guy that definitely stepped over some lines this week, and has now defended the title twice, which puts him in some pretty rare company.
Yeah, I agree with all those, but I'll give you some additional ones. Give me Alonzo Menifield. I mean, undefeated over his last 5 fights in that division. It's a shallow division. A couple more wins, and that's a guy that be a contender that I think a lot of people doubted. He's been in the UFC for a long time now too. My number 2, Cody Garbrandt. I mean, dude's on a 2-fight winning streak. Ben's all back in. Ben's saying now the title shot. He's gonna face Sean O'Malley for the title. He's gonna clown on him. He's gonna do like the robot in the cage and the matador and all this stuff. And my number 1, I'm actually going third fight at the top. I'm gonna go Shavkat Rakhmonov. Started off a little slow, but I mean when you dominate guys, Stephen Thompson, you're 18-0, 18 stoppages. Stopped everyone. Who would be favored in the division over him right now? In his next matchup? I think the answer is nobody.
I think you're right. I think he opens as a slight favorite over Leon Edwards.
So in a lot of people's eyes, this guy could be possibly and I say a lot of people's eyes, just me and you. But in our eyes, this guy possibly could be the top 170 pounder in the world. So I think his stock is up. Let's go to the Bears. Now, this is the list you do not want to be on. Ben, I'll let you. I feel like I'm in a given mood. I'll let you go again first.
Okay. Going first, Bears, Factory X. Had 2 high-profile fights tonight. Brandon Royval and Dustin Jacoby, both of them lost. And in Jacoby's case, he was a pretty handy favorite. And yeah, just rough night for Factory X, which is normally outstanding camp. They had a pretty rough week last week as well, so they'll get a well-deserved break here over the next couple weeks. Number 2, people with the USA Wrestling tattoo. The USA Wrestling tattoo made 3 appearances tonight. Cody Durden, Colby Covington, and Tony Ferguson. Not only did all 3 lose, but for the most part, all 3 kind of got tooled on the ground. Not a good look when you got the old USA Wrestling tattoo.
In fairness, I don't think Durden wrestled in college. Tony Ferguson was not even Division I. And Colby was
I'm
Colby was
just
a
calling out the tattoo.
Like you gotta to get the UFC Wrestling tattoo. You should at least have to win like the US Nationals.
And number 1,
be on the senior team. You know.
Yeah. Number 1, MAGA. And this is not me being
man.
No, this is not me being political. Because you know what?
Do it, man. Do it, man. It's all right.
Colby Covington, Bryce Mitchell, and Cody Durden.
Oh, good call. That's good point.
You know, but here's the thing. MAGA would have been on my Bulls list, especially if Mitchell or Covington had won and just cut this insane promo and run out of the cage and shaken hands with Trump and slapped hands with Kid Rock. But as it is, Bryce Mitchell woke up, and the thing he was maddest about was that he didn't win and didn't get the mic. You could tell, like rough night for guys that have just expressed their personal and ideological affinity for former President Trump. Not a great night for them, and
I picture Jesus up in heaven, like seeing Bryce Mitchell get knocked out and turn into God the Father and be like, "Come on, dude, he's gonna give me a shout out." Like, what are you doing?
Jesus is like, someone tell him that Bible wasn't free to take. You're supposed to leave it back in the drawer at your hotel when you're done with it. It could have been a night where we had some extremely memorable moments, for better or for worse. We didn't get any of them because the guys who would have delivered them did not get the mic.
It's all right. We'll let you guys have it now. We'll get it next
you
November.
Guys have the opposition. I'll take it.
We'll get it next November. I'm actually rooting for like DeSantis, one of these other guys. All right. My number 3, Brandon Royval. I mean, yeah, he didn't look terrible, but the issue that he has is now he's 0-2 against the champion. So he's kind of in that tough one. No matter who he wins, he's got to hope somebody else knocks out the champion before he gets a title shot again. So he's young. He's, so it's not out of the realm possibility that he'll be a champion one day. Be really hard if he doesn't improve that wrestling, but overall, not a good time for Brandon Royval. My number 2, how about celebrity corners? David Goggins, Tenacious D. The cornering did not work out too well for them. Don't get the celebrities in your corner. I mean, even Trump was supposed to, Covington wanted Trump to kind of walk out with him and everything. And my number 1, and you kind of already said, but I'm going to do it again, Colby Covington. I mean, now he's 0-3 in title shots. And undisputed title shots. I know he won the interim, but undisputed title shots. The gimmick seems it's starting to run a little old. Colby stock to me has reached an all-time low. So Colby Covington is on my Bears list. Let's do the dude seriously. Do you have any dude seriously's?
Yeah, I've got a couple of dude seriously's.
All right, kick it off.
Dude, seriously, I go out of my way not to pick at the UFC announcing booth, even when it's Rogan and DC, who tend to bring out the worst in each other. But it was pretty embarrassing during the co-main event to hear Joe Rogan ask over a live mic whether Brandon Royval had ever been in a 5-round fight before. That is basic homework. Come on. Other dude, seriously, during fight week, Colby Covington wore a particular costume to one of the pressers, and I know he was going for an Uncle Sam most American thing ever vibe, but he just looked like the guy inside the Walmart that's trying to get you to do your taxes right there at like the little kiosk.
Spinning the guard.
Like,
I thought it was more of George Washington than Uncle Sam. But okay.
Maybe it was. The fact that like we aren't dead sure what he was trying to be is part of the problem.
Yeah. Way to go. Way to let all of America down.
Yes.
Any more?
No, those are all mine.
All right, I got a couple. Chris Tyone. Dude, seriously, how many times you got to pull out Ulanbekov's toes in the cage? It was like a baker's dozen, and never once like changed the position, never once took a point. Like, dude, seriously. Brian Kelleher, that haircut, dude, seriously. Like, what the fuck was that? And then, bad enough, you get knocked out, you fall face first. So we have to look at that freaking terrible dude. Seriously. How about this one? The UFC broadcast, Joe Rogan, they start the fight, Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett, and they go, so Paddy's been working on, specifically working on having his chin not, oh, we lost Ben. There he is.
There I am.
Okay, we lost you for a second. You missed my favorite dude, seriously.
Well,
all time.
I heard Chris Tyone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you thought of that one because I forgot about that one, but like the friend of mine who's now a ref and official here in Texas and kind of working his way up, he texted me almost at the same time I was texting him, like, dude, after 5 warnings, take away the position and explain through a translator what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like, I got like 13 of them. My other one was Brian Kelleher with that freaking haircut. Like, what was that, dude? And then he falls face first, so we have to look directly at it. Like, at least roll over to your back.
He's getting his money worth out of that, assuming it wasn't free.
Yeah, the guy looked like he lost a bet or something. Like, he looked like, what do, Brian? What'd you take, last place in your fantasy football league or something? How about Paddy Pimblett and Tony Ferguson? Joe Rogan says, so we talked about Paddy Pimblett this week, and he said, this whole week off, this whole time off, he really got to spend a lot of time, looking into his film session and really listen to the criticism about keeping his chin high. So he really wants to keep his chin low. 10 seconds later, his chin is like, Joe Rogan hasn't even finished his sentence, and his chin went from like here to here. As soon as the first punch was thrown, like, dude, seriously. All right, I got to go with DC. I know you were trying to give Stephen Thompson love. Don't ever use Stephen Thompson and Tom Brady in the same sentence again, just because they're 40. They're both in their 40s. Dude, seriously, don't do it. No one. Don't do it with anybody. And
Ninja Kitty mentioned Dean Thomas, and that reminds me. When they panned to Dean Thomas, he's wearing the big floppy hat and the big pink sweater. He looked like a member of Fat Albert's gang. Like that was a hell of a
yeah. Yeah, and DC looked like Fat Albert too, so it worked out.
But at least DC buys shirts in his size. Like Rogan, no matter what size he is, those buttons are just begging for mercy. Like you look at the label of his shirt and it says like contents under pressure.
That's his luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leon Edwards had better chance of getting knocked out by one of those than the punches that Kobe was throwing at him.
Oh, damn.
And dude, seriously, like all the people on Twitter, that's like, dude, what was the UFC thinking? Putting Strickland like 2 rows in front of Draker's 2+. You know what they were thinking? This exact moment. Good promotion. Yeah. They hope for this.
Well,
like, dude, seriously, really? They panned the camera from one guy to the other guy. It was planned on purpose.
Yeah, they'd been sitting there for probably an hour, and only once they panned the camera, then all of a sudden the fight breaks out.
Yeah, I'm not saying like they said, "Hey, go hit him right now," but
yeah,
like you have 2 high, especially Sean Strickland.
Yeah. It's
like you said at least draw. They probably thought like they'd have some word enough to get separated, but
yeah, it's like UFC 223 where Conor flies into New York like coked up with 6 of his buddies, storms, the Barclays Center and heads straight for the bus, and they just follow him with cameras, like instead of like stopping him. Like, they know exactly what's gonna happen.
It's like all those like TikTokers are like, hey, look at this gold digger. It's like, oh, you mean that person who's happened to be on camera and they're mic'd perfectly, that everyone can hear exactly what they're saying? Oh, yeah. Weird. So there you guys have it. We had to do series. Let's get to the grade. I had like an A+ heading into like the co-main event and main event.
But yeah, it was. I wouldn't have won unless something truly historic had happened. But it was becoming a fringe card of the year contender.
Yeah,
and then like neither of the top 2 fights were horrible. At least the right fighters won, but they were just both so routine that, I took it from an A+ for me to just a B. Like we
Yeah.
still had one of the best undercards of the whole year, knockout of
Sure.
the year contender. Yeah, still a
Fight
very
of
good card.
the year contender. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a B too. We speak of that? Did we get awards?
I know what they are.
Okay, let's just hear them.
Okay. Fight of the night, easy one. Irene Aldana and Karol
course.
Rosa. 3 performances of the night. They go to
Okay.
Josh Emmett, Ariane Lipski, and Shamil Gaziev.
Gaziev. Fine. I totally agree with that, man. Obviously, I'm good with Lipski. Like,
Yeah.
What about Garbrandt?
It's a fair question to ask. I mean,
I would have given
Gaziev looked good. But,
he looked great. He looked good, but like Garbrandt got a first round knockout.
Yeah.
But okay, no, I mean, like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Rakhmonov made beating a longtime top 10 fighter look pretty routine. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I thought Garbrandt was a shoo-in for money, but okay. All right, Ben. Do you want to give a listener of the evening?
It's a really hard one. We had,
That's a tough one.
I mean, Alan McDonald. I don't know what time zone he lives in, but Alan McDonald always drops in early with the heat, and then sometimes taps out depending on when the card is. Bob Chimpson, as usual, stirring the pot. He's our own Colby Covington without quite as much of the really objectionable stuff.
Oh, you just challenged him.
That wasn't meant to be challenged. Antheme, who has now joined us in hanging out on the previews as well in the comments.
Very solid.
I appreciated that as well. Cool Panda, the movie nerd, I believe is new. Definitely my rookie of the evening vote. Ninja Kitty just dropped in, and low volume, but lots of power, kind of the Alonzo Menifield award. Ninja Kitty's the listener of the night, because not only did they make me laugh, but reminded me a couple times of things that I've been meaning to say and didn't. So yeah, Ninja Kitty gets the listener of the award / honorary third panelist from me.
So does that mean all the people who are in the chat who aren't commented are like the Colby Covington, like they're here but they're not doing anything?
Oh, damn. They're Brandon Royval's wrestling coach.
It is the holiday season. I'm feeling very what's the word? I'm festive. So I'll give everybody. I'm gonna put everyone on the nice list. I'll give them all gifts. You guys are all my listeners of the evening, because this is the last Shillan and Duffy show of the year.
Yep.
So I want to thank everybody for listening. I know I speak for both me and Ben. We really appreciate you guys.
We do.
The recap is a lot easier than the previous show. The previous show obviously takes a lot more work, but the recap is more fun because we get to talk to people and stuff. So, and we do that. We obviously do that one live. The previous show was taped. So, but if you listen to the previous show, or if you just jump into the recap, or you just go to sherdogdotcom and find us today for the first time, whatever, that's cool too. So we love you guys. We hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas to all you guys who celebrate. Of course, to you, Ben, happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Thanks to you as well, sir.
And Happy New Year to everybody. We were off for a couple weeks, so Ben, do your family thing. I'll do the same. And yeah, man, we got a couple weeks, and we get right back into face punching. So everyone enjoy your time, and enjoy the NFL playoffs, all that good stuff that'll be coming up. So, all right, see you guys in 2024.